We're going to learn how to make some citrus canes today. You can do all the citrus fruits. It's the same principle. We can do oranges, lemons, limes, and the often forgotten grapefruit. They're all done the same way, and they're really fun to do. Nice and summery. You can do one of each fruit and put it together into a nice little necklace like this. It's just a fun piece to do, real summery, and I live up in the cold north, so it's fun to have something bright and cheerful to wear. So I will show you how to do the basic cane, and again, you can do it whatever colors you want. I actually, as I was doing this, I did put together, I did the different colors for what I was using. You do not have to do these same shades, but each one of them will have a darker color and then a lighter shade tint of it. So I just wrote out what I used. I was using Primo, and for the lighter orange, it was 1 part white to 1.5 part orange. For when I did limes, again, this is all Primo, it was 1 part white to 2 parts green. The light color for the lemon was 2 parts white and 1 part of the zinc yellow, which is kind of the more slightly neon yellow if you're looking at that family of colors. For the grapefruit, for these three, the dark was just the solid color right out of the package. For the grapefruit, for the darker layer, I did 2 parts white and 1 part cadmium red. And for the lighter part, I did 6 parts white and 1 part cadmium red. Not only is this, some formulas for mixing the colors, but it's kind of interesting because it points out how, we've talked about this before, but how some colors are much more pigmented than others. They have just more of the coloring in them. So it takes, in something like the cadmium red, which is one of the most highly pigmented ones, it takes a whole lot more white to dilute it down to a lighter shade than a lighter tint than like the orange or the other colors. So it is kind of interesting, an interesting study on the pigment in your clays. This is a really good lesson because very often if you're trying to lighten, make a pink or something like that, it's real common to overuse the red or the pink that you're putting in. You really only need a tiny bit. So anyway, that's what I used. You do not have to use these formulas, but this is what I used for Primo colors. All right. First thing we're going to do is start with a jelly roll. So we have done those before, but I will show you again. I rolled these to 2 different thicknesses. It doesn't actually show that much in here, but I made the darker color. This is for my grapefruit. I made the darker color a number 2 on my machine, and number 1 is the thickest, so this is the second thickest, and this is a number 3. And remember, it depends on what color you put on the outside of the spiral will be your color on the outer edge. So I wanted the dark on the bottom. So I'm going to do my lighter color first. And again, I'm just doing a tiny little sample for you. You can make your cane as big as you want. But for our purposes, I will just do a tiny little demo. When I do a jelly roll or a spiral, I do the long sides the same. And I do the 2 edges just a tiny bit longer. And I will show you why in a second. I'll get my clay out of the way here. If you leave just a little bit on the edge, it's just a little easier to start that jelly roll. You fold up that side, and then it just gives it a little start. And when you're rolling, you want to try and get it smooth. Keep those little ends tucked in. And when you get to the end, because we left that little tab, it's easier to smooth it down and blend it down onto itself, so you're not getting the light color blending onto the dark. You're going to guarantee that your dark is going to be the one smoothing onto the dark. All right, need to fix that seam so it's a little smoother. Oh, by the way, I didn't note this in the color, but for the final wrap of the grapefruit, I use the cadmium yellow because grapefruits are kind of pink inside and yellow on the outside. The other ones we'll talk about later, but I'm using the same color, but obviously on the grapefruit, they're more of a yellowish on the outside, so I happen to use the cadmium. So if you want to do that, you can do that. All right, so whatever fruit you're making, you do this jelly roll, and then you're going to wrap it in white to make the membranes, like here. I don't want the membrane parts to be too thick because you're actually putting two up against each other, so you don't want it to end up thick. But this gets reduced so much that I actually am using a number 1, a thick setting, because as you reduce it, the outer edges always reduce the most. It becomes the thinnest. So you do want to start with enough white so you have some membrane in there after you've reduced. Anyway, you remember from wrapping your jelly roll, do a straight edge here, a straight edge here, line that up, and cut that edge and roll away. I'm going to come down and tap right here, and that's going to draw a line. That's where you're going to cut. And then that should just butt right up there. You don't want to overlap that because that'll just be an extra thickness of clay there. So you want to get it butt up. And we'll smooth that out a little bit. And there you go. That is our first step towards the citrus cane. Now, all we need to do is reduce this and cut it into 6 parts. So we're actually going to switch over to limes at this point. I have already reduced my spiral like this, my lime spiral, into a long, thin, reduced cane. You want to get it generally into a triangle shape. Now, you can